Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ari, and today we're going to have some more stories about our toxic life. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video, if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now without further ado, let's go. Today's first story. In this story, Opie discovers his wife's cheating after she mistakenly takes his phone, revealing explicit texts from her affair partner. Confronted, she admits to a 2-year affair, blaming marital boredom and enjoying the attention. The betrayed husband ends the marriage despite her pleas. Her brothers assist in a swift separation. The wife, struggling with remorse, apologizes via text. The husband, retaining their home post-divorce, rents it to her. He finds solace in daily runs and music, emphasizing the emotional strength needed to overcome such betrayal, hoping others avoid such painful experiences. Now let's get into the story. When my wife and I got married, she knew I'd be making less money than her, but it never was an issue. I was a freelance animator, and she thought that was a cool career to pursue. After we were married for 7 years, she came into the habit of having to return back to work a few hours after she'd gotten home. She always said it was either paper that needed to be signed before submission, someone royally screwed up and she needed to fix it, or a coworker was finished with their part now, so she could finish what she needed to do before the deadline the next morning. I never questioned what she told me she needed to do for work. I trusted her. We were married for 9 years. I was 36 and she was 38. This returning to work habit started when she was 36. So for 2 years at this point, this time, when she left, everything changed. When she left to go back to work, she accidentally took my phone with her. We had really similar phone cases. I heard my wife's text tone go off, which was different from mine, and I knew instantly what happened. I was about to message her by texting my phone when I saw what another person texted her. They were only programmed as initials, but they asked, "Did he let you leave the house yet?" My heart fell down to my feet and my stomach came up to my throat. I hastily replied to this person, saying, "Yep, and could you let her know she accidentally took her husband's phone with her?" This person replied by saying, "Wrong number." I called my own phone from hers and she answered it laughing, saying she realized what happened now. I told her she didn't realize everything that happened. She was confused. So I told her the text she just got. She was silent. I could hear heavy breathing while she tried to figure out what to say. She finally suggested it was the wrong number, but she probably knew I was too smart for that. I told her this number was programmed as initials. I asked her who that person was, and she was silent again. I told her she didn't need to come home again. I would have her brothers come get her stuff. She yelled in protest, but I hung up. Her brothers were going to be super disappointed in her. They were like another set of parents, but somehow worse because they were supposed to be her friends too. When I told them what happened, they both agreed to come over before my wife showed up. I scrolled through the messages as far as I could stand. This had been going on the entire time. She had this going back to work habit. She never went back to work. Every single time she went to either his house or to a venue with him, and then his house. I wanted to lock her out and never see her face again, but she had a key, so I couldn't really keep her out. When she got there, I just told her to start packing. She was crying and begging me to at least let her explain. I told her she didn't need to explain anything. My heart was broken, and I knew it was her fault and what she did to cause it. She went on to say that she felt like two different people. She said she loved me deeply, but also enjoyed seeing AP. She told me she would stop if it meant we could save our marriage. I asked her how long this had been going on, even though I figured it probably had been for 2 years already. She didn't want to answer me. Instead, she just swore it would end if I gave her another chance. I told her it was over. She'd been going behind my back and sleeping with another man for far too long. Too long for me to wrap my head around. And she played me like a fiddle. Just then, her brothers arrived. I left them alone to talk while I packed my wife's clothes for her. I just wanted her out so I could start adjusting to being single again. When they finally came in to help me, they looked very upset, but not as upset as my wife. It looked like after they knew what was going on, they told her there was no way they could defend her actions, or convince me to give her a second chance. They helped me pack quickly. She barely helped, stopping often to blow her nose and sob. I asked her why she did this, wanting to know if I was undesirable in any way. She said marriage after a while became boring, and when AP showed her attention, she couldn't turn him away. I couldn't help but call her a few names at this point. I said she didn't deserve to be married to anyone because a steady relationship is a luxury for the loyal spouse. Her brothers agreed. She said she didn't like being the breadwinner either. That got me. She told me at the start of our marriage that it didn't bother her at all and she only needed me to pay a few bills. Her money would enable us to have some occasional treats and splurging. This arrangement worked extremely well as far as I could tell for 9 years. Without the income one provided, she wouldn't have the extra money to splurge. But she didn't see it that way. She felt like her money was providing the fun and didn't look at what I was taking care of. I told her to get out now, and only her brothers were welcome to come back for her stuff. They almost had to carry my wife out of the house. She was so resistant to leave. I kept telling her I didn't want to see her. I didn't believe I could trust her ever again. Finally, she left with them. I was never told where she was staying, but she did try to apologize a lot over text. I think it was just because AP was moving 8 hours away and she wasn't welcome to come with him. The affair fog was wearing off and she was realizing how badly she messed up. I got to keep our house in the divorce, but I ended up renting it back to my ex-wife. It was pretty empowering to be her landlord. She managed to pay me rent really well, but she didn't have any extra spending money. As I predicted, it's up to me if I ever want to lower or raise her rent, but for now I'm just letting it be. I started listening to music on a run every day, and it is very therapeutic. I hope you all never cheat on your partner or go through something like this. It's a really terrible thing, but anyone can survive it and come out stronger emotionally. Today's second story. In this story, Obi discovers his wife's intent to divorce and pursue an affair through her phone messages. Uncovering her betrayal with his stepfather, he confronts them, exposing the affair. The wife pleads for forgiveness, but he decides to end the marriage. He informs his mother, leading to both divorces. During the divorce process, he secures a new home for himself and his mother, ensuring financial responsibility from his ex-wife. The story concludes with the family adjusting to a new life, and the man receiving gratitude from his children for handling the situation for their well-being. Now let's get into the story. Around the time my wife and I were celebrating our 15th wedding anniversary and oldest daughter's birthday, I used my wife's phone without her knowledge and found that she had Googled questions about divorce. I was shaking as I looked through her phone messages. I figured if I didn't know this, I might not know about something else. And I was right. She was messaging a girlfriend of hers about how she was tired of me, tired of being a housewife life, and wanted a chance to live her life how she wanted. Her friend talked about another man that she thought was me, but my wife corrected her, saying she was thinking of her boyfriend. Her friend advised her to file for divorce and end the marriage before she was caught cheating. She should have taken her friend's advice, but my bored housewife said she needed more time to secure her future life in advance. She wanted to make sure AP was ready for her to move in. She admitted that she planned to have AP over at our house the next time I left for a few days. I didn't know if this was the first time or just the only time she told her friend about it. She was saying terrible things, but she expected her friend to understand, not criticize her. Her friend said she was living an unfulfilled life, so she had every right to do what she wanted. That's when my wife added that she even planned to let me have full custody of our kids. I was shocked and heartbroken. It was like she didn't realize or care about how much this would affect them. I searched her phone for any secret messaging app, but I couldn't find anything, so I didn't know who AP was. I sent myself proof of this conversation and put my wife's phone back exactly where it was moving away from it seconds before she came into the room looked really upset, but I used that to add credibility to my lie. I said, I just got off the phone with my boss who needed me to go on a business trip in place of a sick coworker. She looked pleased about it, but had to pretend she was disappointed. She snatched her phone and left the room. I packed and gave my wife a heartfelt goodbye and kiss. She didn't know it was the last time I would kiss her. I drove somewhere else for 2 hours. When I came back, my mom's newest husband's car was outside her house. My heart was racing as I recalled the last time we had a family gathering. My wife was definitely talking to him. I couldn't hear much, but she had flirty eyes and stood really close to him. We attended their wedding 2 years prior, and my wife said he looked incredible for his age. I'm sure his wealth didn't attract her at all. More family outings came to mind where my wife and stepdad were alone or could have done something right under my nose. I then went through the back door because the lock was broken. Thankfully, our kids were staying with friends for the weekend. Finding the downstairs empty, I went upstairs and knocked on the locked bedroom door. I heard my wife suck in air that she didn't let out for the next 20 minutes. It took her 2 minutes to open the door, and I could hear more than one person scrambling around to clean up and get dressed. When she opened the door, my mom's husband was standing shamefully beside our bed. It was the only place to stand in the room. The bed was quickly made. You could tell they were just on it, so I told them they were caught. I knew they were sleeping with each other because I saw my wife's phone earlier. AP looked ashamed and extremely embarrassed to be in this position. My wife was only upset because her future was now uncertain. Knowing who AP was, I concluded that she expected him to leave my mother so they could move in together. Now the tables had turned. I had proof. So even if she changed her mind and just wanted to keep the affair going, or P broke up with her, there was no going back. AP asked me to forgive him and promised that if I didn't tell my mother, he would rededicate his life to making her the happiest woman alive. I just gave him a cold, hard look since he thought I would actually buy that garbage. He looked at my wife for a split second, saying he made a huge mistake by seeing her without my knowledge. I don't think he could say what they did out loud. I asked, but he just crossed his arms, covered his mouth, and looked down. I asked if they slept together, and he shamefully nodded. My wife then said she was wrong for betraying my trust and needed me in her life. She said she was sorry for believing she was bored Lord and needed a change. I asked my despicable stepfather to leave. My wife begged me to get into bed with her and let this go. She said 13 out of 15 years of loyalty isn't too bad and I should be able to forgive and stay with her. Meaning she was having this affair with AP for 2 years since their wedding day. I told her she was disgusting to ruin my mother's marriage and ours, and she was going to lose her husband, children, and home because of this. The tears started flowing again, but I did not care. She was not the person I thought she was. Later that night, I slept in the guest room without saying another word to her. I also called my mom and told her what happened. She was absolutely heartbroken, but thanked me for letting her know I stayed in that room for the time it took to get the divorce finalized. My mom was also planning on divorcing AP. I didn't tell the kids what happened, but I'm sure they knew something was going on since me and their mom were quite distant. I think my wife hoped I would change my mind last minute if she behaved honorably while we went through the motions. AP swore via text he would never forgive himself, and he vowed to me that he would never see my wife again. I wondered if he realized he just gave me proof to show my mother, not that I needed it. She would probably believe me. While waiting for the divorce to become final, I told my wife that her income was going to pay all the bills. That was the least she could do for the heartbreak she caused me. She agreed, and she spent lots of time with our children, which was bittersweet to me. I saved up money and sold some of my baseball card collection to gather enough for a down payment on a house. It had 2 sections, one for me and one for my mother. Then, just after the divorce was final, I told her the truth about her husband. She was devastated, but at least I was able to soften the blow by telling her about our new way of living. She took a week to have it out with AP and pack her things, but I was there with her. No one should have to go through this. But when I considered keeping the truth from her, it didn't feel right. After proving my wife's infidelity and willingness to give me the house in custody, the judge found it impossible to believe her lies. She was forced to move in with the only person willing to have her, which was her boss. You can imagine how awkward it must have been when she had no choice but to fire her due to her poor job performance. I sold the house to help me pay off the deluxe duplex with 3 bedrooms each. My kids love the house and told me they're old enough to understand that life is full of change. They actually thanked me for handling this as well as I could for them.